growing his family's empire to care about finding a wife. I would gladly give Miguel my sister. Ram teased. Miguel Chan had the hardest time with Veronica. Miguel is a neurosurgeon who is highly in demand across the globe. He is undoubtedly the smartest in the group. However, growing up he had been quiet and preferred to study rather than play with the other kids. Veronica hated that, so she always dragged Miguel out to spend some time with kids his age. By the time Cedric took his poverty training, Miguel was already finishing up his university degree in America. I went to America to escape that. She-devil, you wouldn't dare give my parents the idea, Miguel said with a slight panic. None of us will ever manage to melt the Ice Queen's heart, Alexei said while looking at Cedric. If my sister ever heard you call her the Ice Queen, you'll lose all your chances, Alexei. Cedric knew that Alexei had been in love with his sister Iona since they were 12. He always gave her whatever she wanted, however Iona never reciprocated. You're lucky to have found love, Cedric. Miguel sighed. I found love, but I've been lying to her since the day we met. I'm not even sure how she will take the news. Cedric looked down. He knew the moment Adriana checked that bank card she would have 1,001 questions. He had a lie ready. He hated that he had to lie to her, but he had to. I heard Reyes Group was developing a new high-class neighborhood. Do we get first dibs? Ray asked. I think our dads get first dibs. Ram replied. It was true that the family heads usually got the first chance to snatch the prime lots. However, this time they were hoping Cedric could help them get the best properties before their fathers. Don't you still need your dad's permission to use your money? Alexei teased Ray. The Lawrence family gave each member an allowance based on their contribution to the family businesses. Ray managed most of it at this point and was getting most of the shares. His father, however, always questioned Ray's purchases. Yeah, I'm still stuck using a Civic. My dad won't even let me buy a better car, Ray complained. Unlike other children of rich families, the five princes never owned any flashy cars, mostly due to Ray's inability to get his father's approval for him to buy a more expensive one. Between Ray's car dilemma and Cedric's poverty training, the need for an expensive imported car was lost among the five men. You can tell your dad that it's an investment. I think he'll let you purchase one then, Miguel said, as he once again took the jest too seriously. I'll handle the property issue. Cedric grinned. Among the five of them, Cedric was their unofficial leader. He was the most practical and his family was also the most powerful. Cheers to Cedric in his return, Alexei said, raising a glass of wine. On the other hand, Adriana had just finished work. She was about to head to her car when she remembered the bank card Cedric had given her. There was an ATM at the lobby of Islands Inc. She decided to check the balance. When the machine asked for a PIN, she realized she didn't know it, so she texted Cedric. It's our anniversary, came his reply. Suddenly Adriana was shocked awake at the balance of the card. 500 million. Chapter 13. Adriana waited for Cedric to come home, but she was too tired and fell asleep. The next day when she woke up, Cedric was already done preparing breakfast for the family and was waiting for her downstairs. Before Adriana could say anything, Cedric suddenly spoke. Honey, I hope you don't mind, but on my birthday let's celebrate at lunch. My friends decided to go out that night, Cedric said, hoping Adriana would be fine with it. Do you even have money to spend on your birthday? Gracia ridiculed. Mom, Cedric has a job. Stop thinking he is some bum that just lives off us. You don't even have a job, Mom. Adriana was furious. She had woken up to her mom criticizing her husband. Adriana, it's all right, Cedric said, trying to calm his wife down. Why don't you sit while I get dressed, then let's head to the office together. All right, I'm not too hungry, Adriana said, taking her seat. She placed a little food on her plate and began to eat. On their way to work, Adriana suddenly remembered that she wanted to ask Cedric about the money. Cedric, Adriana asked. Yes, Adri, Cedric replied. Where did your family get the 500 million? In the bank card, Adriana finally asked. I think before my parents sold off some property in the past and invested it in a company. What you got are the proceeds. It was technically true. So does that mean you are rich now? Adriana asked. I'm still the same as before, Adriana. My parents left that money for you. The 500 million was nothing compared to the other cards Cedric's father had sent over. Did you get anything from them? Adriana asked. I did, but I invested it. Cedric didn't want to explain any further. The rest of the week went by as it did. Normally in the past, the only new part was that instead of working as an assistant, Cedric was now sitting in Morco's presidential office. Finally, Cedric's 28th birthday arrived. Cedric had asked Ian to book him a table for 4 at the Bamboo Room for lunch. He had invited his wife and his in-laws out to lunch. Ian had also arranged for a company driver to pick up Mr. and Mrs. Hernandez. Charles Hernandez would be fetched at the university while Gracia Hernandez would be picked up at home. Cedric would be driven by his driver in his personal car. He would later fetch Adriana at Islands Inc. Cedric chose to walk to Islands Inc. and have his driver pick him up and Adriana up at the front of the building. Adriana had requested an additional hour off for lunch as it was her husband's birthday. As Cedric waited outside for Adriana, he once again encountered the same group of employees from Islands Inc. that had ridiculed him in the past. When they saw Cedric, one of them called out, "Hey, aren't you Miss Adriana's husband?" Cedric was perplexed by their actions and simply nodded. "Look man, you are good looking and all. And I think you love Miss Adriana, but don't get offended when we say she could do better," an employee said. Others also joined him to ridicule Cedric. "Yeah, one of the directors actually likes Miss Adriana. He might be a little bit older but he has the means to support a beauty like her. You know you should just separate from her, or annul. I'm sure the Hernandez family will compensate you for letting Miss Adriana go. Miss Adriana is so pretty I think she could even snag one of the 5 princes." At that Cedric couldn't help but grin. Adriana had, in reality, snagged one of the 5 princes. "Guys, let's go. I think Miss Adriana is approaching." True enough, Adriana arrived. She gave Cedric a hug and greeted him a happy birthday. Cedric then approached a nearby BMW 6 Series and opened the door. Adriana and the employees that were mocking him gasped. "Cedric, that's someone else's car. What are you doing?" Adriana scolded. Behind her the employees were already laughing at the embarrassing position Cedric had managed to get himself into. "Adri, this is our ride. Come on," Cedric said, calling her over. "Cedric, this is not a nice joke. When the owner comes back he will scold you." Adriana still refused to get in the car. Cedric bent in and asked his driver to be the one to call Adriana over, instructing him to say that it was part of their lunch reservation. The driver followed his boss's orders and told Adriana. Adriana found that this made more sense and got into the car, leaving the employees that were mocking Cedric a moment ago, stunned. Bamboo Room was a very exclusive restaurant located right outside the city. It was at the top of a hill. Its walls were made of durable glass, giving diners a view of the whole city from their tables. It was difficult to get a reservation in Bamboo Room. Luckily Raymond was the owner. It was one of Raymond's businesses outside of the Lawrence family. When Adriana stepped out of the car she was surprised to see where Cedric had brought them. First Nouveau and now this. She was worried Cedric was trying too hard to impress her parents for her. However, when she voiced her concerns to Cedric, he simply told her not to worry. Inside the restaurant there were no other customers. Cedric suddenly realized that Ian had booked the whole restaurant rather than just one table. "Adriana, what is this? Why are you spending so much just for this man's birthday?" Adriana's mother complained. "Mom, I didn't spend a cent," Adriana said. With a smile, she was still proud that Cedric had managed to arrange such an expensive treat for his own birthday. "Gracia, get off the boy's case. Weren't you just fawning over the BMW that picked us up?" Adriana's father reprimanded his wife. Gracia had no choice but to simply take her seat and keep quiet. "Happy birthday, Cedric." Charles Hernandez greeted with a genuine smile. "Thank you, sir." Cedric and Charles got along decently. Charles never said anything against Cedric, but he never defended him either. Lunch went on peacefully, something that Cedric had never experienced since marrying Adriana and moving into her parents' home. Gracia had always had something to complain about or some flaws she chose to point out, but today at Bamboo Room, she remained silent and simply enjoyed her food. "Do you think Cedric is hiding something from us?" Gracia asked when Cedric excused himself to go to the washroom. "He recently got a promotion," Adriana said proudly. "But Adri, that isn't enough to book the whole Bamboo Room," Gracia said, still doubting her son-in-law. "I hope he didn't borrow money from any loan sharks. If he Fails to pay, they will come after us. And for what? A meal at Bamboo Room? Mom, I'm sure Cedric has his ways of paying for our lunch, Adriana said, defending her husband. While Cedric went to the washroom, he settled the bill. The manager, however, told him that their boss had given instructions not to let him pay. Cedric quickly called Ray. Happy birthday, Seed, Ray greeted as he answered the call. This is too much, Ray. You know I can afford to pay, Cedric said, reprimanding his friend. Hey, this is something I'm giving you out of my own pocket without any influence from my family whatsoever. Take it, it's part one of my two-part gift, Ray said proudly. Two-part gift, Cedric was curious by what Ray meant. Yes, this is a personal one. The one tonight is a more formal one from the Lawrence family. Welcome back, Cedric. Thanks, Ray. I'll see you tonight then. Bye. Cedric dropped the call and returned to his wife and in-laws. When they finished eating, they simply got up and left. Mr. Cedric, our boss says he hopes you enjoyed your meal at Bamboo Room. He will see you tonight, the manager said as he escorted them out. Cedric, how did you manage to close out Bamboo Room? Not only is it ultra exclusive, but it also has an extremely long waiting list, Gracia asked. My friend owns it. He gave me a free meal as a gift. I didn't think he would close out the place, Cedric replied. Which friend? Adriana asked. Ray, you met him during Asia's engagement. Cedric was proud that Ray had started his own business outside of his family's. Please don't tell me you exchanged saving his life for a free lunch. Gracia was furious at the thought that her stupid son-in-law could have asked for more and only got a free lunch. Mom, weren't you just admiring the place and taking selfies and photos to show all of your friends? Adriana rolled her eyes at her mother's comment. Gracia immediately kept quiet after her daughter spoke up. While Adriana, Cedric, and Charles were dropped off at the exact same locations where they were fetched, Gracia had the driver drop her off at the salon she frequented. She planned to show off to her friends. Not thinking her plan through, Gracia's friends simply assumed that she was bragging and that she booked the BMW for the trip to the salon just to show off. Chapter 14. At 3 p.m. all the employees of Moore Company were allowed to go home. According to the announcement of HR, it was their president's birthday, so everyone was given a special treat and allowed to leave work early. All the employees also received an additional $5,000 for the day as a treat from their new president. Many of Moore Co.'s employees knew it was also Cedric's birthday and they teased him that he was so lucky to celebrate his birthday on the same day as their new president. Of course, unknown to them, Cedric was actually their new president. Many of the department directors and business partners sent gifts to Cedric's office. He now faced a new dilemma of where to put all of these things. Some he could keep in his office, such as the liquor and chocolates, but the bigger items he didn't think were appropriate to keep in his office. He called his dad with the intention of asking if he could leave the gifts in his childhood home. Why don't you just bring them home? Emilio asked his son. Dad, my wife and in-laws have no idea who I am, remember? It's hard enough keeping the secret as it is, Cedric complained. I mean the house we got you, Emilio explained. What house? Cedric asked. He had no idea he had a house. It's tradition that when you get married, we buy you and your wife a house, Emilio told his son. You got me a house without me knowing. Cedric sighed. Well, we did build the Mountain View village with every intention of setting up a community for you and your friends to have home there. I didn't even let their dads purchase property there, Emilio said casually. To people like him, building a whole exclusive community was just everyday business. It just so happened that this one was perfect for his son and his friends. Well, at least now I can tell the guys that they can purchase properties somewhere their dads can't. Cedric sighed. When he was younger, he was used to this kind of high-spending lifestyle. As a matter of fact, he vividly remembers his dad hopping on a plane to London in the morning for a meeting and being back the next afternoon for his football game. However, after he went through the hardships of being poor, he couldn't help but shake his head at the excessive lifestyle of the upper class. Your driver and Ian should know the address. Why don't you ask them to take you to our house first, then take your gifts to your house at Mountain View? Emilio suggested. He was hoping his son would agree so that he could spend more time with him before the party. I just need to finish some things here at the office, then I'll go home. Home, it was a word he used every day when talking to Adriana, but he never truly felt at home at the Hernandez compound. He missed his childhood home, his parents, the feeling of belonging and being accepted. Finally, after all those years, he would be going home. Cedric, are you still there? Cedric was pulled back into reality upon hearing his dad call his name. Yeah, sorry, I wasn't paying attention. Dad. I was saying that the house is still bare, so when Ian and the driver get there, you need to give them instructions on where exactly to bring your things. The master's suite is quite obvious in the study, so you might prefer them to put your gifts in either of the two rooms. Emilio explained. All right, Dad, I'll tell them. See you in a while. All right, Cedric said, dropping the call. Cedric thought about the house. He wasn't going to tell Adriana about it just yet. He wanted her to come home to a place that was already prepared for her. It would be complete with all the appliances and staff that they would need. He called for Ian and Camilla to come into his office. Ian, talk to Veronica. I want her to do the Mountain View house as well. This time. Tell her not to rush. I want this place to be perfect. I plan to show it to my wife when it's done and ready to live in. Ian nodded as he took down notes. Camilla, estimate how many people I need to staff the house with. For now, I will not be living there full-time, so I will just need people to clean and maintain the facilities and grounds. Also, please get me a copy of all the available lots in Mountain View. Cedric would send the 4 other princes which lots were still available and offer it to them. After the driver takes me home, I will ask him to come back. Please bring the gifts that are not food and those that are inappropriate for the office to the Mountain View house. Put them all in the study for the meantime. After giving his instructions, Cedric allowed Ian and Camilla to get on with their work. At 5 p.m. he asked Ian to call his driver to take him home. Chapter 15. At the Reyes house, everyone was excited, including the help. Many of them had been with the family for a long time and had seen a young Cedric say a teary goodbye to his parents and sister. Those that were new, on the other hand, were curious to meet the young master of the Reyes clan. Is he here yet? Ayana asked as she ran down the stairs. Miss Ayana, please, you might trip and fall again, a maid called out after her. In public, Ayana was known as the graceful and quick-witted daughter of the Reyes clan. She could hold a candle against any of the rich sons that were attempting to inherit their father's businesses. Ayana was currently home from her studies abroad. She was poised to work in Reyes Group and had taken a business degree at university. Last year her father sent her to America to further her studies. He isn't here yet, Ayana. Her dad called from the ground floor study. Dad, you're home early, Ayana greeted happily. She knew her father was a workaholic. Growing up, he spent most of his time working or going to business related events. Aside from missing her brother, she also wanted him to come back in order to let their father take a break. Your dad and I are in here, Ayana. Come in. Priscilla Reyes called her daughter. Emilio sat at his desk while his wife massaged his shoulders. As a couple, Cedric and Ayana's parents were not ashamed to show that they loved and cared about one another. At first glance, people would think that Emilio and Priscilla's marriage was arranged from the very beginning. Priscilla was born to the Claren clan, an old and powerful political clan that owned a lot of properties in the southern parts of the country. Priscilla was the only child of her generation. The Claren clan was rich, but it had no one left to inherit everything they owned. She grew up with Emilio since both families often did business together. However, when Emilio went through his poverty training, they were separated. Years after he returned to the Reyes clan, Emilio and Priscilla reconnected and fell in love. Their match was something both families celebrated, since it was a marriage that was both beneficial and at the same time founded on love. Mom, can you and Dad stop being so affectionate in front of me? Ayana complained. She loved that her parents never let the flame between them die, but sometimes they went too far. All right, Ayana, Priscilla said, taking a seat on the couch. A maid entered and announced that Cedric had arrived. The couple stood up slowly while Ayana dashed out of the study and into the doorway to welcome her brother back. When she saw her brother, she ran up to him and hugged him. I missed you too, Ayana. Cedric laughed. Mom, Dad, he greeted each with A hug. Come, you must be tired from work. I'll have some coffee and a sandwich. Prepared for you, Priscilla said, guiding her son back into the house. Mom, I'd like to take a bath first, Cedric said. Sure, your room has clothes your size so you don't need to worry, Priscilla said. With a smile on her face. Her son was home. Mom shopped up a storm yesterday, seed. You should have seen how many bags each of the attendants had to carry. I kept telling Mom you wouldn't be living here. Anyway, Ayana said as she walked up the stairs with her brother. I'm sure I'll still be spending some time here at home, Ayana. Besides, my wife doesn't know who I really am yet. I was really looking forward to meeting her, you know, Ayana complained. I'm flying back to America tomorrow. I just really took today off to see you come home. Well, I'm here. I promise to find time to visit you. All right, Cedric promised his sister. All right, remember brother, family first. Always. Ayana winked and headed into her own room. The Reyes had kept the event very private. They only invited people who knew who Cedric was. Despite this, news still poured that the heir to Reyes group was returning today. Although they knew they wouldn't get invited, many still tried their luck at getting in, including the members of the Hernandez family. Are you really not invited, Mark? Asia asked her fiancé over the phone. Sorry love, but it's so exclusive that I heard no more than 30 people aside from the family were invited, Mark said, apologizing to Asia. What is so special about this heir to the Reyes group anyway? My dad and brothers keep nagging me to ask you if you know him or if you're invited to his homecoming party, Asia whined. Asia, Mr. Reyes has not been seen in the past 13 years. According to rumors, he was abroad undergoing special education in order to prepare him to inherit Reyes group. I'm sure you know exactly how powerful that company is, Mark explained. Won't your friend Mr. Raymond be there? Can't he just bring you along? Asia asked. Even if Raymond Lawrence wanted to bring someone along, this isn't the type of party that you can invite just anybody. Mr. Reyes is keeping a low profile, so he isn't really letting people know who he is, Mark said to Asia. Fine, I'll just talk to you later, Asia said, dropping the call without even waiting for Mark to say goodbye on the other line. 16 Chapter 16. At the Reyes home, people were starting to arrive. Among those invited were Cedric's cousins and his childhood friends. Aside from these people, no one else knew Cedric's real identity. I guess Cedric is still choosing to keep a low profile, Raphael Chan, Miguel's father, mentioned to his son. Yeah, even his wife doesn't know yet. We haven't even formally met her. Miguel laughed. Miguel was the least recognized among the 4 other princes. He had once bumped into Cedric and Adriana in the mall one day. Cedric simply introduced him as Miguel, his childhood friend who was studying to be a doctor. At that time Miguel was already a doctor and had already started making a name for himself in his field. Miguel had come to the party with his parents, older brother, Eric, and younger sister, Nicole. Out of the 3 of them, Miguel's father had chosen to change tradition and groom his daughter to run their chain of hospitals. Initially, he had wanted Miguel to do it, but he was more focused on saving lives rather than making money. As for his older brother, he had no interest at all in the business and had chosen to be an actor. The next to arrive was Ramon, with his sister Veronica and their parents. As they entered, Veronica was complaining to her older brother about how much work she suddenly had because of Cedric's return. But when she saw Ayana and Miguel's sister, she quickly dropped the conversation and headed over to speak to the 2 other girls. Alexander arrived with his parents and 2 younger sisters, Katerina and Natalia. The 2 girls just as quickly ditched their parents to hang out with people their age. The last to arrive was Raymond with his father and mother. Raymond was an only child, and as a kid he had often bugged his parents to give him siblings, but as he grew older he was glad his parents never did have any more children. The atmosphere of the party was very relaxed and very happy. It wasn't at all formal since everyone in the room had known each other for decades. The sisters of the group all chose to sit at one table chatting away. Despite their relaxed demeanor, all 5 of them had heavy expectations on their shoulders. To the outside world they were sophisticated, elegant, and geniuses in their own right. Take Veronica for example. She is a well-known interior designer and architect that managed to rise despite changing her name and choosing not to use her family name. However, at that party at the Reyes house, they were scrolling through their phones, looking at boys and shopping. Look at this top, Nicole, they are hitting the stores in Milan this week. Ayana showed her friend. Oh my, I need to have that. Do you think we need to fly to Milan to get it, or can you ask someone in the branch office to buy one for you? Nicole asked. Nicole Chan was the youngest child of the Chan family that simply defied traditions. She was the youngest daughter of the medical family, and yet she was leading the charge in innovating the business end of the medical field. She was well regarded, both in the business and medical field. I asked my designer friend to ship 5 out. One for each of us. Ayana giggled. Listening to Ayana right now, you wouldn't think that she was known as a business genius, despite not being the heir to Reyes Group. She had given so much contribution to the company that people thought she had the Midas touch when it came to business. Nicole, I think I met a guy for you, Veronica announced. His name is Ian, and he's my brother's assistant. Ayana interrupted Veronica. If you let Veronica drag you to meet this guy, he won't have time for you, cause he will be chasing my brother around all the time. He'll be a Marco 2.0. Oh come on guys, we all know Nicole has a type, Katerina Sebastian teased. Katerina looked harmless at first glance, but in reality she graduated from Harvard Law and topped the bar exam. She was also the most sought-after lawyer and had never lost a case. Yeah, but nothing ever happens. Ayana teased. Ayana, stop bullying Nicole. The usually quiet Natalia scolded. Natalia Sebastian was one of the leading bioengineers in the world. Her work was so secret that people didn't even know where her lab was. Hey girls, don't you do anything aside from shop. Stop wasting our hard-earned money. Ram teased from their table. It's my brother that wastes my hard-earned money, Nicole said, sticking out a tongue at Ram. And I make my own, Veronica told her brother. Nice one, Ram, now both of us got roasted, Miguel grumbled. The group suddenly quieted down as Emilio Reyes stood up to make a speech. Family and friends, thank you all for coming. As you all know, today marks the end of Cedric's poverty training and his return home. Welcome home, my son, Emilio said, raising a glass with a smile. Cedric, however, has requested that we do not reveal to the public his identity just yet. As a matter of fact, I am sure you have noticed that someone we were all eager to meet is not here, his wife. So I ask everyone to respect Cedric's wishes and help him keep his identity a secret. Welcome back, Cedric, and thank you, because I can now play golf more often. Everyone laughed at Emilio's joke. Among the 5 fathers present, Emilio was the only one left that was managing the bulk of his family business. The other 4 had their children helping out already. The night continued with much laughter and warmth. That night Cedric felt he had truly come home. Chapter 17. The next day Cedric woke up with a smile on his face. He had wanted to spend the night on his old bed in the Reyes house, but his mind kept thinking of his wife, Adriana, alone in bed. Despite an exhausting night, he still got up early and prepared breakfast. Oddly enough, that morning Gracia was silent, although she kept sending nasty looks towards Cedric's way. When Adriana came down, she told Cedric that she would be going shopping with some friends in the afternoon, so there was no need for him to pick her up. Cedric simply nodded. He was expecting to work long nights for the next few weeks, since he was planning on having more Co's relaunch soon. At the office, Cedric arrived with a tray of coffees. He had decided to give it to Ian and Camilla as a treat for their hard work. As he walked in the building, he accidentally bumped into someone, spilling the coffee both on him and on the person. You idiot, he heard a familiar voice say. The person who he bumped into was Chris Guerin, a logistics manager who he went to high school with. I'm sorry Chris, it was an accident, Cedric said, apologizing to Chris. Do you know how much this shirt is worth? Chris was furious at the stain on his shirt. What if I just replaced it? Cedric offered. Can you even afford it? Or will you ask your wife for money? What kind of a man relies on his wife for money? In Chris' mind, Cedric was still just an assistant who had little money and relied on his wife to get by. I really can. I'll give it to you by the end of the day, Cedric insisted. A shirt like what Chris was wearing was like loose change to Cedric. Fine, Chris said and turned away. Cedric went back to get new coffees for his assistants. When he got to their floor, he gave them the coffee, and to his Surprise, Ayana was talking to Camilla and Ian. Brother, Ayana greeted him with a smile. Ayana, hold on a moment, he turned to Ian and Camilla and gave them each a cup of coffee. This is to thank you guys for the past few days. In Cedric's office, Ayana made herself comfortable on the couch. Shouldn't you be on a plane by now? Cedric asked as he took his seat. I asked Dad to push my flight back to tomorrow, Ayana said, playing with her phone. You know, if you wanted to treat Ian and Camilla, you could have just given them money. They would appreciate that more. Sister, sometimes it's the small things that count, Cedric said. You aren't poor anymore, brother, Ayana answered back, rolling her eyes. But I do admit you might be right. So why are you here? Cedric said as he looked through the files on his desk. Well, I was gonna ask you if you wanted to go shopping with me and the others, Ayana asked. By others, you mean the girls? Cedric asked without lifting his head. Well, Ram is going with Veronica, and the Sebastian siblings are all going. Honestly, it's just you that's going to be left behind, Ayana told Cedric. If people see me with you guys, they will speculate, so I'll pass this time, maybe next time. Alright. Alright, do you need us to get you anything? Ayana asked before leaving. Maybe some clothes that I can leave here in the office. You have much better taste than me. Ayana held out her hand in front of Cedric, who looked at her with a puzzled expression. Your card, she said. Don't tell me you lack money, Cedric replied. I don't, but you have much more. Also, I plan to put my shopping on your tab. You owe me 13 years worth of shopping, Ayana told her brother. Fine, Cedric gave Ayana the card that held more Co's earnings. Thanks, bro. Ayana giggled and left the room. Cedric then asked Ian to go out and buy the shirt he had promised Chris. It was, after all, partially his fault. Later that day, Cedric went down to the logistics department to look for Chris. Ian accompanied him since he had to bring some documents to the logistics director as well. Here, Cedric handed Chris the shirt. Do you think I'm a fool like you, Cedric? This is obviously a fake, Chris said loudly. Many people were at the logistics department at that time, so naturally, many people heard Chris accusing Cedric of passing off a fake. Ian wanted to laugh at Chris. His boss was the owner of the company. Why would he even need to buy a fake? On top of that, Ian had personally gone to the store to buy this shirt. Do you need the receipt as proof? Cedric asked. Sure, show it to me. Chris dared him. Cedric fished out a receipt from his pocket and gave it to Chris. Ha, you poor guy, you even asked Assistant Ian to buy this shirt for you. How desperate are you? Since Ian had gone to the store and used his company-issued card to purchase the shirt, Ian's name was naturally reflected on the receipt. I had to go to the mall today, so I offered to buy it while I was there. Cedric paid for it, Ian said, in defense of his boss. Really, Cedric, using your new coworkers to defend you? Chris questioned Cedric. What is going on out here? The director of the logistics department suddenly came out of his office. He noticed that there was a commotion outside. Today was a peak day for the department, and he couldn't suffer any more delays. On top of that, the president's assistant was going to visit him today. If the president heard his people were slacking off at such an important time, he could expect to be scolded. Director, here are the documents. Ian suddenly greeted him. Assistant Ian, you're here. What's this mess going on out here? The director asked. Director, one of your employees is trying to bully my teammate, Assistant Cedric, Ian told the director. Assistant Cedric, the director paused for a bit before realizing that the person one of his managers was bullying was actually the president. Who is it? He said, quite furious at the fact that someone chose to offend someone that powerful. A manager named Chris. He's been at it since this morning when the president spilled coffee on him, Ian whispered to the director. The director soon paled at the thought. Manager Chris, the director shouted. All eyes were suddenly on the director. Come to my office now, he said with a dark expression. Chris was forced to drop the matter with Cedric. The logistics director was so mad at Chris that he demoted him. Chris assumed that it was because he was causing a fight in front of Assistant Ian and that the director didn't want the news to reach the president. The rumor in the company was that to get into the president's good graces, you needed to go through Assistant Ian and Assistant Camilla. Cedric, being a new guy on the president's team, was often ignored by these rumors. That afternoon at Marcus Mall, Adriana was shopping with her friends. Adriana had known Natasha, Sophia, and Julia since Their high school days, they had all gone to the same private school in the same university after, despite being rich and spoiled, they never looked down at Adriana for marrying Cedric. They did, however, feel disappointed at how Cedric turned out in the end. As they entered an expensive watch shop, they were surprised to see Larissa, her husband Anton, and her best friend Mary. Ah, babe, can we hurry up? I think someone just brought the trash into this shop, Larissa told Anton. Anton saw that Adriana and her friends had entered. He knew from his wife's stories that this woman had married a man that depended on her. Can you even afford to buy anything here, Adriana? Mary suddenly asked. Hey, don't talk to Adriana like that, Julia said in defense of Adriana. Aren't you tired of working to provide for both your parents and your husband? Larissa mocked. Look, Larissa, we are only here to look. You don't need to attack us for it. It's not like you own the place, Adriana said, calmly. You guys are too poor to be in here, Mary said. Hi miss, how can I help you? A shopping assistant said as she approached the group. We aren't together, Larissa said in a disgusted tone. You don't even need to attend to them, they can't afford anything here. Adriana had initially planned on buying a watch for Cedric with the 500 million his parents had given her. Hearing Larissa's comments, the shopping assistant proceeded to ignore Adriana and her friends. Adriana, how about this one? It looks really simple but it's quite elegant, Natasha said, looking at a watch in the display case. Miss, this watch is very popular too. Business executives, it costs around 150,000 each, another shopping assistant said. How about couples watches, Adriana? Sophia said, looking at another display. Miss, I really suggest you ignore them. The girl they are trying to convince can't afford anything in this store, Larissa commented. The shopping assistant couldn't help herself and she had to ask Adriana. Miss, are you planning to buy anything? Can you afford any of our products? Of course she can, I'm sure she plans on buying the most expensive watch here. A group suddenly entered the shop. Ayana had been planning on buying a watch for her brother in the shop right next to where Adriana and Larissa were. The watches in that shop were much more expensive, but when she saw Adriana, she decided to lead the group in. Unfortunately for Larissa and the shop assistant, Ayana had heard them talking down to her sister-in-law. Larissa's jaw fell to the floor. She was shocked that the four princes and their sisters were in the same shop as them. Ah, we meet again, Mrs. Reyes, Raymond commented from behind. Do you know these people? Natasha asked Adriana. I just know Mr. Lawrence here is acquainted with my husband. I don't know the others, Adriana whispered back. Unlike Adriana, Natasha was updated with the latest upper-class news. She knew that the true creme de la creme of society were standing in the same shop as them. Sirs, Mrs., you know this woman? Anton asked. He had once met with Alexander to discuss a business deal, so he was familiar with who they were. And you are? Alexander asked, looking at Anton with disgust. Mr. Sebastian, we met before regarding a business deal, Anton explained. I meet a lot of people, Alexander answered quite flatly. What's your most expensive watch here? Ayana asked the store assistant. Miss, it's this one, the assistant said, pointing to a pair of watches at the center of the display. Do you have 10 of these? Ayana asked. Yes, miss, only 13 sets were released in the country, the assistant answered. Good, get me 13, pack the 2 for this young lady and I'll have the other 12. Ayana ordered. Larissa and her companions were floored at Ayana's request. Soon the manager came out to assist in preparing the 13 watches. Ayana simply handed her card without even asking how much it was. Soon her phone started to buzz. It was Cedric. What did you buy? Cedric said with a flat tone. I was saving a friend in distress, brother. I think you'll be quite proud of what I did. Ayana had forgotten that after she made a purchase with Cedric's card he would immediately receive a text message notifying him of the purchase. Meanwhile, everyone else was shocked when Ayana said that Adriana was her friend. Why are you being so mysterious? Cedric asked. Ayana was normally very straightforward with him. I'll talk to you later, brother. Don't forget to send me off at the airport tonight. See? Yeah. Ayana dropped the call without waiting for Cedric's reply. Who is the manager here? Ayana asked. The man who had come out to process her payment stepped forward. I'd like you to ban these 3 from all your stores worldwide. They upset me, I'm sure. The sight of them would upset my brother too. Everyone was shocked at Ayana's declaration. Your brother would definitely approve. Nicole said from behind. Yes miss, the manager complied, and sent Larissa and her companions out. Here you go, miss, the manager said as he handed Adriana the 2 watches. Miss, I can't accept this. Adriana refused. Ayana's gift. Miss Adriana, you don't need to worry. My brother has so much money that too. Him spending this much is like buying coffee. Please take it, I would be very offended if you didn't, Ayana told her. Natasha urged Adriana to take the gift as it would be rude to refuse the offer. In the end, no matter how hesitant Adriana was, she had to accept the gift. I don't even know your names, Adriana told the group. Well, I'm Ayana Reyes, nice to meet you, Ayana said, extending her hand to shake Adriana's. 18 Chapter 18. Blank. 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 Enjoying Never Judge. Join my Discord server, https://tinyurl.com/wowserver. Follow me on Instagram and Facebook too. At @wounded_warriorauthor. Blank. 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 That afternoon at the airport, a small group of well-wishers gathered at the VIP lounge. I can't believe you're flying, coach, Nicole told Ayana. Well, I thought to myself, if my brother could go through poverty training, maybe I could learn a thing or two from mingling with people different from us. Think of it as research, Ayana told her friend. Ayana, it's time for you to board. Her father called out. Dad, Cedric said he would be here. Can't you talk to Ray to delay it a while longer? Ayana asked. The Lawrence family owned one of 4 airlines that flew out of the country, and Ray managed this part of the family business. A figure in the distance suddenly appeared. It was Cedric. He waved from afar. Behind him was Ray. It seemed he had gone to fetch Cedric at the entrance. Sorry I'm late, traffic was really bad. Cedric gave his sister a hug. It's alright, at least you're here to send me off, Ayana smiled, in front of everyone. She was a tough businesswoman, a leader in the industry, but in front of her family she turned into a spoiled little girl. By the way, care to explain what that charge to my card was? Cedric asked, remembering the events earlier. We met your wife earlier, Alexei said from behind, and she was being bullied by someone named Larissa de Jesus. Ayana simply dealt with it. Thanks Ayana, and my card back please, Cedric said, holding his hand out. I thought you would forget. Ayana giggled. I had my driver send the stuff I bought for you to your office. As for what that big purchase was, well, I bought watches for all of us. Look, we all match. Now, their friends raised their wrist to show the matching watches. And where is mine? Cedric asked. It's with your wife, she'll probably give it to you later when you get home, Ayana told him. Alright, anyway it's time for you to leave. So come here and give me a hug goodbye, Cedric said, stretching his arms to hug his sister. I'll miss all of you. At least I got to meet my sister-in-law before I'm gone for a whole year, Ayana said as she began to tear up. You don't fool us, Ayana. I'm pretty sure in a week you'll be calling me asking me to cancel a flight so that you can go home. Ray teased her. Ayana did have a tendency to ask him to secure her a chartered flight home with one of their planes. Hey, I'm not as bad as Nicole. She actually flew to Italy on one of your planes to meet a guy that Veronica set her up with, Ayana teased. But, he was cute, was Nicole's only answer. Veronica, who had set her up with the guy, just laughed behind her. Stop delaying the flight, Ayana. I'm gonna lose profits because of you, Ray said, pushing Ayana towards the gate. Ayana waved goodbye to everyone and boarded the plane. I looked up the people that bullied your wife earlier. Do you want me to do anything? Alexei asked Cedric. Not yet, I know who they are. I have bigger plans for them, don't worry, Cedric replied. Adriana suddenly gave Cedric a call, inviting him out to have dinner with her and her friends. Cedric immediately agreed and asked for his driver to fetch him. At the restaurant, Cedric spotted Adriana and her friends at a table near the glass wall that separated the restaurant from the mall. He greeted the girls and took a seat next to Adriana. How was your shopping trip? He asked, knowing full well what had happened earlier that day. Adriana made a new friend. Natasha was unable to hide her excitement. Yeah, the wildest thing happened. We bumped into that bitch Larissa in a shop. And we got saved by the Ayana Reyes, who was accompanied by the 4 princes and their sisters, Julia told him. I still can't believe that we met the 4 princes. If only we could meet the mysterious Reyes heir. I hear he is extremely handsome. I haven't even met him and I'm already in love. Sophia giggled. At the thought. Wow, you guys seem to have been lucky. Today, so how did Miss Reyes save you? Exactly, Cedric tried to change the topic. Since what Sophia just said made him feel awkward. Adriana recounted how Ayana had purchased the watches and banned Larissa from the shop. Here is the watch by the way, I couldn't refuse her offer, she told the sales assistants and the manager that I couldn't return the watch, so I'm giving the other one to you, Adriana said as she handed Cedric a box. Cedric immediately placed on the watch and grinned. Technically, he bought this watch. At a table across the restaurant, Julia spotted a group of guys that looked very familiar. Oh my gosh, isn't that Jerome Sevilla? Julia pointed out. The girls all turned at the same time to spot the familiar face. Remember when we were in high school? And he filled his trunk with red roses and asked Adriana to be his girlfriend. Natasha said. Yeah, he even got into a fight with his best friend Jim over Adriana. I remember catching that fight, Julia recounted. I think he's with AR Fines, the half-British football player. Didn't he court you too? Adriana, Sophia asked. Guys, that's ancient history, don't bring it up. Adriana was worried that hearing about the men in her past would hurt Cedric. Don't worry Adri, I still won in the end. Cedric winked at her. Look, Jerome is coming over. Julia squealed like a teenage girl. Hey girls, Jerome greeted. Oh hey Jerome, this is my husband by the way, Cedric. Jerome was a friend in high school, Adriana introduced them to each other. I think we were more than friends. Adriana, Jerome winked. That's very inappropriate, Adriana said flatly. I'm sure Cedric here doesn't mind. It's all in the past anyway, Jerome said. Look, Natasha suddenly said, in a panic, pointing out of the window. There was a crowd of girls screaming and some bodyguards clearing the way. Cedric saw a familiar figure. It was Eric Chan, Miguel's older brother. I just checked his IG stories. He was at the airport a few hours ago. What is he doing here at the mall? Adriana and her friends were huge fans of Eric. Cedric had to endure awkward moments of them crushing on someone he saw as an older brother. He is so mysterious, Julia sighed. Eric kept his private life a complete secret. No one even knew that he was related to Miguel or if he had any siblings. Of course, he had the power to keep all his private information a secret since his agency and the country's biggest news network was owned by the Abad family. His extremely clean image led to more women falling in love with him. He was tall, with sun-baked skin, black hair, and eyes that seemed to pierce into your soul. Suddenly, Eric spotted Cedric, who had been at the airport with him moments ago. He grinned and made his way into the restaurant where Cedric was eating. I think he is here to say hi to AR. You guys know that they are both represented by Lights Entertainment, right? Jerome boasted. I heard that the president of Lights Entertainment, Ramon Abad, has the looks of an actor as well. This was the latest gossip that Julia had heard, and she was excited to share it with her companions. Hey AR, come over here, Jerome called his companion over. AR Fines obliged and came over to their table. Chapter 19. Hey guys, oh look, it's Eric Chan. AR waved towards the actor. At this point Adriana and her friends were already blushing. Despite being married, Adriana still has a huge crush on Eric Chan, and Cedric knew about it. Cedric quickly sent Eric a message on his phone. Older brother, do you have any idea how awkward it is to have my wife giggling like a teenage girl just because you are in the same restaurant as her? Eric felt his phone vibrate. When he saw who sent him the message, he stopped walking and grinned. He looked directly at Cedric and walked over to their table. The group assumed that he was coming over to talk to AR Fines. Hey Eric, AR greeted, but Eric just ignored him and looked at Cedric. You didn't tell me you'd be here, Cedric. Eric said with a grin. I would have given you a lift earlier. Everyone gasped when they realized that Eric Chan was talking to Cedric. I had my own ride, Cedric said with a smile. Mr. Eric, it's me, AR Fines, we're both signed to Lights Entertainment, the football player said, trying to get Eric's attention. Eric looked at his assistant, who whispered something in return. Clearly he was explaining to Eric who AR Fines was. Ah yes, the new kid. Welcome, have we met? Eric asked. Cedric wanted to laugh at what Eric had just done. Clearly Eric had no idea who AR Fines was. Eric loved his job and he loved his fans. However, he never paid too much attention to other artists and famous personalities. He didn't have to, after all. One of the 5 princes was his younger brother. Mr. Eric, we met at last year's Christmas party, AR explained. Oh right, Eric nodded. Cedric, I was thinking of doing a project with your company. I don't think Ram would mind, Eric said, taking a seat next to Cedric. Everyone simply assumed that by your company Eric meant the company where Cedric worked, when in reality it was the company Cedric owned. Cedric rolled his eyes at what Eric said. Of course Ram wouldn't mind. Eric almost had complete control of his career and he managed it well. He chose his own project and endorsements. He even managed his own social media accounts. All right, Cedric replied calmly. Everyone was in shock at how Cedric was treating Eric, and it seemed Eric didn't mind the treatment he was getting from Cedric either. Cedric, Adriana whispered to her husband. She wanted Cedric to introduce her to Eric. Cedric really didn't want to. He treated this guy like his older brother, and yet his wife and her friends had a huge crush on him. However, Cedric always gave Adriana what she wanted. That's how much he loved her. Eric, my wife Adriana. Adriana, this is Eric. Cedric suddenly realized he didn't know how to introduce Eric. I'm an acquaintance of Cedric's, Eric said, completing Cedric's introduction. Mr. Chan, I'm a huge fan, Adriana said. With a huge grin, she saw her friends looking at her and proceeded to introduce them. Well, I guess I'll see you around, Cedric, Eric said as he stood up to leave. Mrs. Reyes, it was a delight to meet you. Adriana blushed as Eric mentioned her. As he was leaving, Eric turned around and shouted back. By the way, Cedric, nice watch, he said, with a wink and waved. If you looked closely enough, Eric was wearing the exact same watch as Cedric and Adriana. Ayana had purchased 13 watches, one for each child of the Reyes, Lawrence, Sebastian, Abad, and Chan families, and the 13th watch was Adriana's. Cedric quickly sent a message to Eric after he left. I hope you had fun. Eric quickly replied. I was the only one that didn't get to meet your wife earlier. I thought it was unfair, so I asked your assistant where you would be. Cedric replied. If they figure out you have one of those watches, they will find out more about you. Eric's reply came soon after. What's life without risks? Cedric grinned and put away his phone. The moment he looked up, Adriana and her friends were looking at him, ready to ask the question that was on all of their minds. How do you know Eric fucking Chan? Julia was the first to ask. He's an acquaintance, Cedric replied. Not good enough. Why were you at the airport with him earlier? Sophia probed. I was there for work. It was true that all the assistants were there. Cedric just wasn't there as an assistant. Cedric, don't you love me? Adriana asked. Huh, Cedric was puzzled by his wife's reaction. This whole time you knew that I was Eric Chan's fan and you never mentioned that you knew him, Adriana accused. It didn't seem important, and you wouldn't have believed me. Cedric shrugged. Adriana and the girls bought his answer. The 2 other guys who had been standing by their table wanted to melt away in embarrassment. They were boasting about knowing Eric Chan moments ago, and it seemed that Adriana's husband knew the actor personally. The girls even didn't notice when they quietly headed back to their table. A few fans managed to snap photos of Eric talking to Cedric. They immediately posted it on social media and the topic quickly trended. Chapter 20. The next morning, Adriana still refused to speak to Cedric, even on their way to work. She didn't say a word. Last night Cedric ended up sleeping on the couch since Adriana was mad at him. The photo of him and Eric was still one of the hottest topics on social media. When Asia Hernandez saw this, she was furious. She was one of the moderators of Eric Chan's fan club, and she hadn't even had the chance to meet the actor. She could only worship him from afar. She threw her phone across her father's office and screamed. Frederick and John, who were in the same room, jumped in surprise. What's wrong? Her eldest brother, John Hernandez, asked. That good-for-nothing Cedric Reyes and our selfish cousin Adriana, Asia shouted. What did they do this time? John asked. They stole my idol away from me. Asia was spoiled by her family. No matter how shallow her problem was, they would do anything to help. Hey Dad, why don't we give Adriana the Elysia Mall project? Didn't you say we were having issues there? The passion branches there are doing extremely bad, and we even have rental issues, John suggested. Please Dad, not only will she be too busy To meet up with famous actors, but she'll also be ruined in our family's eyes. Asia jumped at her brother's suggestion. Well, since she isn't handling a project right now and no one is handling the Alicia Mall project, it does make sense to put a member of the family in charge of it. Alicia is the largest mall chain in the country. No one has ever been able to beat them in a deal, Frederick said, giving his approval. I'll call her up, Dad, Asia said. She was very excited to see Adriana fail. We won't tell her yet. Tonight we have a family meeting at your grandfather's house. We'll announce it there. Frederick knew his daughter's grudge against her cousin. He also wanted to secure his children's place as heirs to Islands Inc. Islands Inc. was the mother company to multiple clothing and shoe brands. It was a legacy brand that had been around for 3 generations. It was founded by Frederick's grandfather in their provincial hometown. They would bring in the latest fashion from the capital and sell it at a marked up price. As time went by, Islands Inc. evolved from reselling to manufacturing their own clothes and shoes. Asia belonged to the design department. Despite holding a degree in fashion, she had no contribution to the designs Islands Inc. released. Her designs were often thrown out at the early approval stages. As a result, her brother and father decided not to let her participate in this year's design process. Adriana, on the other hand, who was working in the business planning and marketing department, was a rising star in the company. She had developed new ways to attract customers and she had even managed to increase their spending in their stores. John, at his sister's request, had thrown as many problems as possible along her way. He even asked Henry, his younger brother, to give Adriana a clearly unfashionable design to pitch. Adriana, however, had managed to jump even that hurdle. At Morco, Cedric was holding a meeting with the different department directors. I would like to announce that if we can continue to improve the performance of every department, we will be relaunching more phones. The product development team has guaranteed to me that in a month's time they will have perfected 3 new phones, each for every tier of the market, Cedric said, applying some pressure on the directors. Soon the room was buzzing with the directors discussing among themselves. At the same time, we will also be unveiling the new look of Morco's head office. It will be younger and more modern. As you might have heard by now, the famous designer, Veronica, is working on this new image of Morco. Not only will our employees be in a fresher environment, our building will also be a tourist location. It will be the first office building that Veronica designs. I'm sure you all understand how many offices she has refused to do this for. The directors were in awe. They had seen Veronica in the office. They assumed that she would only be redesigning the president's office and not the whole building. I won't keep any of you. I'm sure you are all busy. You may go. After dismissing the directors, he noticed that the logistics director remained. Did you want to speak to me? Cedric asked in a cold voice. Sir, I apologize for my manager's actions. Yesterday, I demoted him right after I found out what happened. The director's voice was shaking. He was worried that the president would be mad at him for what Chris had done. He's been like that for quite a while already. It isn't your fault, Cedric said, leaning back on his seat. Should I fire him, sir? The director asked, eager to please. No, I have other plans for him. Put him in a role that demands for manual labor, Cedric ordered. The director nodded and excused himself. Cedric returned to the office to find a message from Adriana. Don't forget the family meeting tonight. Don't be late. Mom and Dad will meet us there. She was clearly still mad at him. That night, Cedric and Adriana drove to the Hernandez patriarch's home in silence. Adriana was still giving Cedric the silent treatment. Cedric could just imagine how furious she would be when she eventually finds out who he actually is. As they entered the dining room, Adriana held Cedric's hand. Despite their fight, Adriana wanted to show everyone that she and Cedric were still very much in love and that she stood by her decision to marry him despite their disapproval. When everyone was complete, Frederick proceeded to give a report to the family while everyone ate their dinner. After Frederick, members of the family that headed a division also gave a report and mentioned any requests that they had. Usually this would go for 30 minutes. Today, after everyone had said their parts, Frederick stood up again. As you all know, one of the biggest projects we have this year is the Alicia Mall project. Everyone knew that the Alicia Mall project was an extremely difficult project. No one wanted to take this project on due to the nature of the people they had to work with as well as the impact it had on the company. Due to the size of the project, I would like to have a member of the family directly handle this. I am going to place Adriana as the project lead on this.